Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series, our show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal, break them down in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insights. And today we revisit one of our favourite characters from the 2020 summer window in Houssem Aouar, the French midfielder from Lyon. Of course, it was a really long link we saw last summer, in which obviously Arsenal didn't end up signing him and instead moved for Thomas Partey on deadline day. This is a link that has resurfaced over the last kind of few days or so. Le Ten Sports in France have reported that Arsenal have even made an offer that has since been kind of contradicted by a few sources, unsurprisingly so, considering the fact that Houssem Aouar is, it's an interesting topic and it's going to cause a lot of hype and a lot of attention. And so therefore, I'm not surprised to see that he is being linked with a move and that there are stories. As to the legitimacy of those links, we have to wait and see over the next few days or so how the story develops. I'm sure that we will hear some more things about this story. And you have to think about the fact that how many players in his position are Arsenal going to be linked to. It's going to be quite a few. Anyway, we're going to get into the meat and gravy of the video, of course, and get your thoughts and feelings, most importantly, too, in the live chat box. I hope you're doing good and well. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe if you are, in fact, someone who has just tuned in for the very first time. So how we do these tactical breakdowns, if these are your first, we've got the wrong background in the background. There we go. That's much better. If these are your first time, what we do is we get expert insight from someone who's genuinely watched the player a hell of a lot and someone who knows what he's like week in, week out for his team. We then go into the statistical focus and player comparison with some of the players in and around his position that have also been linked to Arsenal or have played at Arsenal. And finally, we get your thoughts at the end of the video in the chat box, your thoughts and feelings regarding the player and how you feel about how Arsenal should progress with the possible move. So without further ado, let's kick off with our expert insight, which comes today, of course, from Jeremy Smith, our go-to for French football insights. You can find him on Twitter at JeremySmith98. So sit back, relax, and enjoy everything that Jeremy has got to say.
So it's probably around this time last year, or maybe a little bit later in the year, that we last spoke about Houssem Aouar and the links with Arsenal. That was kind of during the Super 8, the end of last year's Champions League, and there was a lot of hype around him at the time, which made a lot of sense because he was having a really good sort of mini tournament. But that's kind of the issue with Aouar. He can have really good, very mini periods and then go missing for much longer periods. That's my issue with him. He's, I think I've said before, at his best, he's like a sort of, I think I said a galaxy chocolate bar of a footballer, just so smooth, lovely to watch, brilliant at sort of controlling the ball and the play in tight spaces, keeps everything moving with a nice range of passing. Not the greatest tackler in the world, but he can tackle. He can score goals, he can come up with assists. The problem is just no consistency whatsoever. He'll have one good match every month or so and then go missing. The season that's just gone, if you look at his stats, they're actually not bad. They're sort of amongst the best in his career with like 7 goals and 3 assists. But again, this season there are sort of mitigating circumstances in that he also had coronavirus and a couple of injury niggles and the usual sort of unsettled time at Lyon in general. But the fact is that, for a player of his quality, now a good sort of 3, 4, 5 years into his career, he should sort of be taking control, taking gains by the scruff of the neck and pulling Lyon up with him rather than kind of dropping down to their poor level. And I personally, as brilliant as he can be and as he has shown, maybe not coincidentally, for example, a few times against Manchester City, I just am not sure that he can show that quality consistently. It's not like a bad attitude, it's sort of more like no attitude, like, I don't know, not caring enough. And like, you look at his partner in the midfield, Maxence Caqueret, probably not as talented a footballer, but if Aouar had Caqueret's heart and balls, frankly, he'd be sort of amongst the best midfielders in the world now. So I've got reservations because he can be a great footballer, and if someone like Arteta can get that out of him week in, week out, then it would turn out to be a great deal. And frankly, for £25 million, it's not a bad deal anyway. It's maybe worth a punt. I just feel that Arsenal is not the right place for him. Sort of, with due respect to the club and the coach, I think like maybe Guardiola is the kind of person who could eke that out of him more regularly. But I just think with the way things are at Arsenal and sort of always wanting maybe a bit more bite in midfield and Arsenal's form of the last 2-3 years and Arteta's, the jury's still being out a little bit on him. I feel like Aouar would have to hit the ground running and sort of keep running. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's capable of that. And I think that Arsenal fans will quickly get on his back and it will turn into a sort of downward spiral. But again, the quality is there. And if Arteta can get it out of him on a regular basis, then 25 million will turn out to be a complete bargain.
A massive thank you to Jeremy for giving us the insight from the man who has seen Aouar play plenty of football over his time watching French Liga and the French national side as well over many years. I'm going to give you my kind of overall thoughts after the statistical comparison. We'll do that first, and then we'll get into kind of our overall feelings about the player and the link. We kind of have a look at the player in himself. Obviously, I don't know why it says he plays for Lille because he doesn't. Obviously, he does play for Lyon, not Lille. This is because I'm taking this. This is what happens when you use templates. There we go. Let's just change that very quickly. He does, in fact, play for Lyon. 23 years of age, 5'7", right-footed. 2023 is when his contract runs out. 20 to 25 million euros. He's played 30 games this season with 7 coming off the bench, 7 goals, 3 assists. And in the 2021 season, he had 3 injuries, which cost him playing 9 games so far this campaign. And obviously, injuries aren't great. 9 games off of a whole season, is that a lot? I mean, in comparison to like Renato Sanchez, for instance, it's not as many, but it's not fantastic. And if someone that's inconsistent, when you have a number of injuries, it does get quite difficult to get going again. And so that's obviously very important. Moving then on to his kind of comparisons, we're going to compare him with James Maddison, we're going to compare him with Martin Odegaard, and we're going to compare him with Renato Sanchez as well, because you have to remember that Aouar can play in a more of a central midfield role in addition to just an attacking midfield role. So I thought it would be a good test to see how they compare. These are all the league statistics taken from the Premier League and for Maddison for Liga, for obviously the other 2 French players in the mix, with 90 minutes being used to average across them. So going for their heat maps initially, what you do see from Aouar is that he does tend to skew to the left-hand side of the field, playing on that left flank, attacking the wing, can get into the box, but likes to do most of his work from outside of the box. And what you can see from there, does get into the box now and again. And you lead that to some shots, as we'll see towards the end of the statistics. But when you compare that to someone like James Maddison, does a lot more creatively from a number 10 position specifically. And you look at someone like Renato Sanchez playing in the midfield role, is a lot more coverage of the pitch overall. With Odegaard, again, despite being a number 10 and being left-footed, skewing mainly to the right-hand side to get that cut back on his left. The same with Aouar, trying to cut onto his right foot. Going into the goals and assists, how many they've got per season, he does come out okay with 7 goals and 3 assists so far. Maddison coming out really well with 8 goals and 7 assists in the Premier League. And Renato Sanchez and Odegaard not actually having too many of those statistics to their name. Going into their passing statistics, he does come out as one of the lower end of the passing scale in general. You have obviously Martin Odegaard as a much more accomplished passer at 92.2% passing accuracy. He is ever so slightly more accurate with his passing than James Maddison, 0.4% higher. And Renato Sanchez coming out ever so slightly higher, 86.6%, a player who I have my criticisms of his passing ability. So that is a little concerning in this area. However, when we look at how their passing actually is influencing in the game, 6.01 passes into the final third for Aouar, 81.6% is good. Seeing that amount of frequency with an 81.6% accuracy is a good combination. Compare that to someone like Odegaard, who passes a little bit less into the final third, but a much higher accuracy at 88.1. And then you've got someone like James Maddison passing at a 76.3% accuracy with 5.45 going into the final third. There is then the context that you have to apply playing in Liga for Lyon in comparison to playing for one of the top 7 teams in the UK playing in the Premier League. Still is going to be more difficult to find those passes and find your teammates. Arguably, you've got better teammates playing in the Premier League, but you've also got trickier opponents to bypass. So it is something to bear in mind, of course. Looking into those passes into the box, though, he is pretty frequent with those 2.55 with a 56.6 accuracy is good. It's, again, not to the level of Martin Odegaard's chance creation at 2.75 passes into the box with an amazing 76.9% accuracy. It does go to show how impressive Martin Odegaard actually was for us during those 6 months. James Maddison coming out with the highest frequency of passes into the box at 2.87, but a lower accuracy, ever so slightly lower, at 54.9%. Renato Sanchez playing in more of a reserve role, unsurprisingly, a lower pass into the box frequency at 2.01. Looking at their dribbles and how they are on the ball, certainly Aouar kind of matches how the flair style of play of Renato Sanchez, getting on the ball as much as possible and driving with it forwards. Success rate ever so slightly lower than the Portuguese midfielder at 52.5%. Maddison comes out ever so slightly lower in frequency, but lower in success rate of his dribbling. And whilst Odegaard doesn't tend to travel with the ball, he has a decent success rate of when he does at 54.5%. Actually, something I'd be critical of his game, Odegaard, is saying that maybe he should look to be on the ball a little more, a bit more anyway, because he can be quite accomplished with his dribbling. But Aouar comes out as one of the most frequent dribblers of the players that we ever do in these comparisons. He likes to be on the ball and move it forwards. Progressively terms, he comes out very well as well. 3.17 progressive runs. He does move the ball forwards when possible, compared to someone like James Maddison. Doesn't necessarily transition the ball and actually finds himself more in the final third to pick up the ball and do those final clear-cut passes rather than being the man to transition the pass, or rather transition the ball from his own third into the opposition's half. Aouar, playing in a more reserved position at times in central midfield, can pick up the ball and travel with it, hence why his progressive runs are higher. Moving at the final shooting statistics, he does like a shot on him, 3.27 shots per game on average, and a lot of them do tend to be in the box of when he can get in there. And when he does get in the box, he can pop up with a goal or two. Those shots are the last 75 that you send, none of them from outside the box turning into goals, and actually a higher frequency of those certainly happening inside the box compared to someone like a James Maddison, who when he does shoot likes to tend to shoot from outside the box. But still, that means a lower shot accuracy at 31.1% compared to Aouar's at 39.7%, which is a very impressive shot return accuracy. And then you look at the other two on our list, Odegaard and Renato Sanchez, don't tend to be as frequent with their shooting. Renato Sanchez known for a couple of flare shots and certainly from spectacular goals, but in general, doesn't tend to shoot too often at only 1.34 in comparison to that. So there's all the statistics of all 4 players when looking at them. Now we get into the kind of the meat and gravy and looking at the actual discussion side of this. I obviously have my reservations about Houssem Aouar. A lot of it spurns from hearing from people such as Jeremy Smith and telling me what they're like in France and how they're playing. I have an issue with the attitude side of things, or the lack of an attitude. I have an issue with the consistency of how he plays. I have an issue with that. I also have an issue with the fact that he is quite far down on our list of choices. And I have an issue with the rhetoric of saying we should go for a player because he's a snip, because he's a bargain, because you can get him on the cheap. I have a real issue with that problem. I have a real issue with that kind of point, because for me, this window, as we have said for the past 5 windows, is the most important transfer window that I can think of in my living memory of being an Arsenal fan. Arsenal should not be looking for the 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever choice on their list. And if they are, you have to question whether it is or not the right time to commit to a 5-year deal for a young 23-year-old midfielder that's going to be in that position for the long term. Is that the right choice for Arsenal to do if it isn't a player that necessarily genuinely upgrades upon what you already have? The alternative is very difficult, because the other side of not investing in your 4th, 5th choice is going, I'm not going to sign someone. And that is also an issue because, as we know, Emile Smith-Rowe in attacking midfield has his problems. And when I say problems, I'm talking about injuries. So it's a real catch-22 because I'm caught between the idea of saying, I'm not sure we should commit to a 5-year deal for a youngster who I still consider young at 23 years of age, not a youngster in terms of a youth product, but I think you get where I'm coming from. I'm caught between that and committing to that when there may be a much better option maybe in 6 months or 12 months' time, or sticking with Emile Smith-Rowe and risking that injury happening. Because right now, if you were saying to me, do I want Houssem Aouar, I fall on the other side of things. And whilst I think that Aouar is more of an 8 for Lyon and not an out-and-out number 10, if he comes into Arsenal, where do I see him playing? Because I don't see him playing as a pivot alongside Thomas Partey. I can tell you that. I don't see that. I can't see that. And the only other position, if we're going to maintain Arteta's 4-2-3-1, is that he plays as a number 10. Or he plays in the Emile Smith-Rowe role on the left-hand side, in which case, why are we signing a player to play that position? Because we've got Saka, we've got Pepe, and we've got Emile Smith-Rowe. And I would like us to go out and genuinely sign a number 10 if that's the position that we want. Like, we wanted a Buendia, we wanted an Ødegaard, players that can play in that central role. Buendia, yes, has played on the right-hand side. But I'm just not sure that's the right style of player to take a risk on. And he is a risk. He's absolutely a risk because of everything that Jeremy's told us there, because of the fact that his price has dropped significantly, is an indicator and a little bit of an alarm bell in my mind as well. And we have all these issues with consistency. We have all these issues with mentality. Do we want to risk going for that? And it's all well and good. And Yanis, I see what you're saying, playing a midfield three of Bissouma, Partey and Aouar, where Aouar plays kind of in that number 8 role. And we can all sit here and hypothesize about the fact that maybe Aouar would be really good in a 4-3-3. The fact of the matter is that we don't know the system that Arteta wants to play. And the evidence that we have suggests that he's probably going to play a 4-2-3-1. He likes number 10s. Number 10s is what changed our season, turned around our season last year. I don't know if it's worth going and signing a player that's really a number 8 and playing him out of position, because we've done it too many times. That's a big issue I have for me. And I'm not sure Aouar is someone that can play as a double pivot alongside Thomas Partey, who for me also, I don't know if Thomas Partey can play alongside someone that is meant to be more progressive. I want Thomas Partey next season to be given security. I want Thomas Partey to do what he does best, which is transition the ball, get the ball, be an absolute bully in the midfield and take the game to the opponents. Not have to worry about being the disciplined number 6 in the team. That's not the Thomas Partey that I've grown up watching and loving at Atletico Madrid. That's not the Thomas Partey that I want. I want a Thomas Partey that does his best, absolute best game. And that's when he's being dominant in the midfield, on the ball, progressing it, transitioning. Not a Thomas Partey that's sitting and mopping up the scraps. There are other players that we need to buy to go and do that. And I don't think that Aouar, if we sign him as a number 8, is the right player to bring in that position. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box below and get some of your thoughts and feelings. Iceman's hi Tom, tired of this club, lack of positive transfers and the fact that other clubs, media and players are taking liberties of Arsenal. Links that with no outcome, I'll wait till the start of the season. And that's all we can do, Iceman, is we can only wait until the start of the season to really have a genuine evaluation of whether or not this has been a successful window. Am I liking what I'm hearing? I'm liking the sound of Lokonga. I'm liking the sound of Ben White. I'm liking the sound of the links that we're seeing to certain players and positions. I'm liking the frequency of links that we're seeing, but we do see them pretty much every single season. But I'm not seeing any action so far. It's a lot of talk and nothing in terms of genuine kind of substance so far. Sahil says, the good thing about Aouar is that he will help us switch between 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1 as he can play as a number 8 too. Maybe if we sign a mid-price cam like a Kamada or a Mateus Pereira with Aouar, we might be good. Now, if you were saying to me that Arsenal this summer are going to go and sign Houssem Aouar and they're going to go and sign another number 10, like a Kamada, as you say, or a Mateus Pereira, one of these types of players, if that's what we were going to do, then I'd be like, okay, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. The problem is if in reality what happens is we sign maybe a number 6, or we don't sign any other midfielder, or we just sign Aouar and Lokonga and we've only got Smith-Rowe. That's when I start to have problems. That's when I start to have, issues and doubts about the situation, because I think that's a bit of an issue. Darren Rogerson says, I personally see Aouar as a Dani Ceballos replacement, which, I mean, yeah, both number 8s makes sense. I think we'd sign him as an 8 and play him there. But that's what I'm saying is when we played Dani Ceballos, we played him alongside Partey, or we played him with Partey and Granit Xhaka. And the thing is that we're losing Granit Xhaka, so it depends who you play in that position alongside Thomas Partey? Would it be Lokonga? Would it be a midfield of Lokonga, Partey and Aouar? Would that work? I think you need a lot of creativity then coming from the wide areas, which we struggled with a lot last season, but maybe it will improve. It's really difficult. And this is what I'm saying, is that Aouar presents me a problem. And we're sitting here trying to work out the little nooks and crannies about where we would fit him in and what sort of system we would play. And I don't think Aouar's good enough for us to build a team around him. I'm not sure Aouar is consistent enough for us to genuinely sit back and go, look, we bring in this guy in for 25 million quid. Yes, it's a bit of a risk, but now let's build a team that suits him. Because I'm not sure if he's going to give it back as much as we're giving him, because as we've heard of the lack of an attitude, a lack of a motivation whilst playing for Lyon, a lack of a bit of clout about him. That's what I'm concerned about. That's the issue I have. Let's scroll down a little bit more. If you disagree with me, please tell me. The whole point of this show is that we get differing views and differing opinions so we can discuss them. Mark Skip says, hi, Tom. Big fan. Aouar is a risk, one I'd be open to, but are we ignoring the risk of Basuma, Partey and El Neni all leaving for the African Cup of Nations this season? Should we go for a European central midfielder? It's a big question that obviously comes up quite a lot. And the fact of the matter is that I'm not going to really... I have to wait until the end of the window before we start panicking about the African Cup of Nations. Lokonga's hopefully coming in. So that gives us a central midfielder. Aziz, we don't know what's going on with him. Joe Willock, we don't know what's going on with him. And it is 2 to 3 games. Is there an argument to say that 1 month in the season, 2 to 3 games is enough to justify not giving someone a 5-year contract? I'm not sure. It's worthy of debate and something that we will discuss in a lot more detail should these signings actually come to fruition. TOG says, I wish we had set targets like top clubs do. None of this multiple oppositions rubbish. We don't see United going for Sancho and other targets for that position. They know who they want and they go for it. The difference is, TOG, is that Man United have the capacity to go for your Sanchos, your Varans, because they got Champions League football. Arsenal clearly have wanted to go for Emmanuel Locatelli and have been basically told to do one because they don't have the clout, they don't have the rep to go for him this season anymore because we've fallen from grace so much, especially for an Italian player that tends to stay in Italy and wants to go to Juventus, which I completely understand. So I'm not sure you can compare so directly Man United and Arsenal because of the different situations both of those clubs find themselves in this summer. It's about being smart. That's what we need to do in this window, is we need to be smart. Gillo says, Aouar is a bargain. We should definitely be in for him. Yes, he's young and has a high ceiling. And again, I understand the benefits of buying someone that's young and has a high ceiling. Of course, it's great. They have a lot of development time. They can improve loads and they have high potential. But just because someone's a bargain is, for me, not a justification in this specific window. If Arsenal had got their targets, if Arsenal had signed a good right back, a good centre mids, an attacking midfielder, a backup left back, a backup goalkeeper, if we got our targets in and you were saying to me, Aouar's on the market for 25 million quid and you can go and get him, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? That gives us good strength in depth. It gives us a little bit extra and he's a bit of a risk, but hey, it doesn't matter because we've got what we need. We've got what we've needed and we're covered. The issue with banking on a player like Aouar is where I start to take problem with that. It's where I start to get a little bit concerned because of his lack of consistency and because of the mentality issue or lack of a real drive to be as good as say, a Kakare, like Jeremy talked about. That's the problem that I've got with this deal. Stu says, you could even argue Guendouzi got dragged down by Granit's egotism. A few half-decent displays for Switzerland has masked an average career. I mean, I don't know the link between those two. I think Guendouzi's, if we were talking about egos, I think Guendouzi's obviously got a huge one. However, what I would say is that egos makes the most successful players on the planet. You don't get to the top of the game without one. So I'm not sure we can use egos as necessarily an insult or as a detriment to a player, because I think they're important. It's about how you act and how you use and channel that self-confidence, which I think was a problem with Guendouzi. Tom says, question, do you mean to say that Locatelli doesn't dream to play for Arteta? He has the best hair in football. Look, at the end of the day, and I know your question's tongue-in-cheek, Arsenal need to build themselves back into a position where they can then offer players like Locatelli a genuine, attractive place to be? Is Arsenal going to be able to compete with your Man Uniteds, with your Juventuses, with your Man Cities, with your Chelseas who've just won the Champions League when looking at players? Absolutely not. It staggers me that there are people out there that think we should still go out and buy Erling Haaland, bid for Mbappe, bid for Pedri. It staggers me that there's still a mindset of thinking that's a reality, because it's not. Arsenal need to be savvy in the market, as I always say, and they need to buy smartly. And I'm not sure that taking a risk is a smart thing to do in this window. However, and I will do a John and caveat this, the caveat is if Arsenal go out and sign Aouar, even though he is not necessarily the person that I would like Arsenal to go out and sign, I will be backing Houssem Aouar to succeed and to perform and to prove me absolutely wrong. And I pray to God that he does, because at the end of the day, the club becomes before anything else. And if you don't particularly like a player, I pray to God that you back and support them to turn things around, because that's the situation that we will find ourselves in, is relying on the players that we sign to change our club this coming season. So best of luck to Aouar, of course, if he does sign. I desperately hope that we've made a good decision, and it's proven to be so. And I hope my fears about this signing, if it does come to fruition, are not realised. I really do. It's been an absolute pleasure to tune into you guys, as always. This is your last show of the day. I am working and on shift now until 11 o'clock tonight. So make sure you give the show a like and tune into our 8 a.m. morning show. I'll be back tomorrow with the 8 a.m. show, giving you guys all the latest updates as well. I'm looking to do a couple more tactical breakdowns, some of the links that we've been making in the window. If you've got any suggestions for content that you'd like to see, please make sure you leave a comment in the comment section. And genuinely reading some of the comments of support over the last few days, weeks, months has been amazing. They do not go unnoticed. And I appreciate all of the nice comments. When I come into the videos and the live stream, I see your comments at the start of the live streams. I know I don't get to read all of them out. I don't want to come across as someone that's posting loads of positive comments, but I read them, and genuinely they mean a lot to me. So thank you ever so much for that support, as always. If you disagree with me, fantastic. I want to see you disagreeing with me. I want to see you having a different opinion. I want to see you voicing it, because this is a space, if you're willing to be respectful and you're willing to put your point of view across in a way in which is respectful, you're open and much happy to do so. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I will 100% see you tomorrow morning. But other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, as always. Make sure you give Jeremy Smith a follow on Twitter at JeremySmith98. A big thank you to him. See you tomorrow morning, and as always, up the Arsenal.